Okay, so hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to start with a new book. It's called Edge. I kind of like this book because it's quite different from the other ESL book. This is a mainstream course book used by not native speakers of English, but also not by the speakers of English as second language. It's for the students who are trying to move L2 to L1 in English. So they are immigrants from other countries, and then now they start to study in America. So it's quite suitable for upper intermediate and to advanced L2 learners, or if you're immigrants, so you're trying to move from L2 and to L1 in your English. So after you have finished the book, and we assume that you should be able to use English as your L1, okay? But most for schools, so academic and schools. Okay, so if you would like to take part in SAT, ACT, SSAT, and this kind of exams and tests for L1 speakers, this is going to be the right thing for you. Okay, so we're going to start from Unit 1, and we're not going to cover everything in each unit because it's too much of them. So we'll only cover main readings, and also the most important reading strategies, and we will have a lot of critical thinking questions, and these are the things that you won't normally learn in your day school. Okay, and you probably have done a lot of reading. I've heard students saying that the articles are not really difficult, they know all the words, but that's not the most important thing about reading and about writing. It's not about whether you can understand the text or not. It's about whether you could understand the strategy the writer has been using, and whether you could adopt these strategies in your writing and to achieve your aims. For example, persuading people, to touch people, and, you know, to do creative writing and so on. So, for example, in your, if your L1 is Chinese, then in your Chinese exams, for example, think about your midterm exam or your final exams. They won't ask you whether you could understand this story or this text, right? So all the questions, all the tasks in your Chinese exam paper would be about the strategies, the approaches, the logic, and those kind of things behind words and sentences. And we're doing exactly the same thing here, but in English. Okay? Alright. So, is first language language when? Is first language. You say L1, but if you want to use the full version of it, you should say first language or second language. But when you say L, you say L1 or L2, but you don't say language 1. Okay? Alright. Oh, somebody's been asking what is L. L means language. So you say, when you say L1, you mean that is your mother tongue, that is your native language. Alright, so we're gonna start from experiment. But before we start reading, we have a lot of other works to do, and we have a lot of background information to feed. So this unit, it's about story. So story and fiction. It's a kind of genre you would be quite familiar with, I guess, because I know some of you have read a lot of fictions. But today we're gonna see and learn these stories from a bit different angle. Okay, we're trying to focus less on what is happening in a story, but but more from a academic side. So we're trying to figure out the plot, the setting, and the logic behind how to structure a story. Okay, so I also like to fit you something that is not on a book, so that is more systematic, is about creative writing theories. Is also related to the reading as well. So if you're a good reader, and then you could be a good writer, right? So we're going to start from analyze plot and setting. If you have a book, you could find this page. Can't remember which page is that. But trying to make yourself on the same page as me, okay? Or if you don't have the book, it's not the problem. We're going to start from here, plot and setting. So, each short story has a plot and setting. Not only short story, but all kinds of story, okay? But here, since this story, experiment, is a short story, so it says short story here, okay? So, what is plot and what is setting? So the events, or what the characters do in the story, are the plot. Okay? And the setting is where and when the story takes place. It looks quite easy, right? And the events are affected by the setting. So I want you to reread these two paragraphs, if you have read that before, and try to answer me, what is the setting of the story, and what are the first two plot events? Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to read and think about these two questions, and then I'll ask someone to answer. Okay, seems that somebody have finished. So, if you would like to answer the question, you can raise up your hands. Okay, let's start from Jiaqi.
Okay, so I think the walls of this cell all the way to by a metal shelf is the paragraph tells about the setting, because it tells me where the main character is and what it looks like. And I think he had volunteered to be part of a scientific experiment all the way to 3 hours to find it. Are the first two plot of events.
Other events. So can you be more specific, like when and where the story takes place? Can you tell me where does this story take place?
Okay, in a cell.
Yes.
Cell of 6 cement blocks.
Yes, in a cell. So is there any information about when that happens? Or you don't know that?
I don't know that. It doesn't tell me.
right. It doesn't tell you the exact time because that's not the most important thing here. So we know that the whole story happens in a sale. And who is the main character?
Doesn't tell the name, but it's a man, I guess.
It's the man. So do you think the man is a part of the setting, or you think that characters is not part of the setting?
I think it is. I mean, he is.
Okay, so you think that the introduction of the main character is a kind of setting, but can you find the main character in the first paragraph from the walls film? No, right? Okay, so let's go back to the first paragraph. So again, the setting is where and when the story take place. Okay, and maybe a little bit background information, history in the past, what happened in the past. But usually if you want to introduce the main character and you're moving into the first event. Thank you very much, Dachi. That is excellent. All right. So second question. What are the first two events? Maybe we're asking 小可爱. Okay. What are the first events?
The events are the man is finding a way to get out of the cell.
Why does he do that?
And he had volunteered to be a part of a scientific experiment.
So which one happened first?
He first volunteered.
Yes. So that's the first event, right? So he had volunteered to be part of an experiment. And then the second thing is
he is put in the cell.
Yeah, he's put in a cell and he need to find a way out. Okay. Do you think that the setting and the plot works together? Do you think that the one affects the other?
Well, I think the setting affects the event because if he is put in a large field or something, he can easily find a way out. But it is in a cell, not anywhere. So I think the events are affected by the setting.
Right. Yes, I agree with you. I think that, well, for most times the events are affected by the setting. The settings are usually the first kind of information that you will get in a story. Okay? So a story does not always start from events. Well, some of them do, but normally if it's a typical story, it starts from sets the environment and set the background. And this should be the way how you write your own story. Thank you. Okay. Excellent. Right. All right. So this is another a worksheet on plot and setting. Okay. So again, the key points are here. Setting tells where and when the story takes place. Okay, like this. The walls of his cells were built of thick cement blocks. And plot tells what happens. Basically, the events. The events are what the characters do. Okay, and the events usually involves a problem or a conflict and is affected by the setting. Can someone tell me what is the problem in this story? According to the information we had so far. Okay, Nicholas?
So the problem, I think, is that he was put into a cell and he needs to find a way to get out.
Yes. Yes, that is the main problem. Can you give me an example? Oh, okay. Right. So can someone give me an example of a story with conflict? The story involves a conflict. Just trying to use a story that everyone knows. Okay, so the most popular, the most well-known story is not your own story or a book that you read last week. Can you think of any famous stories with conflicts in a plot? Okay, we're inviting 可爱 again.
The most famous one, like Snow White.
Snow White.
Yeah, the Snow White, its problem is her evil stepmother, and she can't believe that Snow White is more beautiful than her. So she wants to kill her so she can be the most beautiful woman in the world.
So do you think that's a problem or is a conflict?
Well, I think it's a problem.
I agree with you. I think it's more like a problem because at first, at the beginning of the story, I mean, her life got threatened, right? So somebody is going to kill her, so that's a problem. A conflict is more like, for example, for a wartime, you want to win over someone. Okay, so or you have two parties, they fight against each other, and that would be for conflict. Okay, thank you. Yes, that is correct. So these are the basic understanding in this book, explaining plot and setting. And also you could use a diagram to show the events of the plot. It's like this. It's from the book, so it's a simplified version. We're going to see the original version later. But trying to get this first, okay? So you got events, you got problem, you got more events, and then you have a climax. What is a climax? So events lead to the climax, the most exciting part. So the highlight of the story. Okay? And after the highlights, the story falls down and come to the resolution. Okay? So after the climax, the problem is solved. This is the resolution. So there's a ending. There's a way out of that problem. So, but if you think from a writer's point of view, it gets more complicated. So plot is the main events of a novel or story as an interrelated sequence, right? This is the definition of plot on dictionary. But main events means what happens in your story. But they need to be some kind of related to each other. Okay? So the events are connected in some way. So note the word connected. This is a key word to keep in mind, and I'll explain why. So the plot then is what happened in your story, connected order in which those events occur. A lot of people get these two words confused, story and plot. Think about this. What's the difference between a story and a plot? Any ideas on that? What's the difference between story and plot? Let's invite someone who's called WOTB. Are you there? Or maybe let's try when. Hi, Wen.
Hi.
Okay. Do you have any ideas about the differences between story and plot?
I think in a story there are a lot of plots and yeah.
So do you think that story is a collection of plots putting together?
A collection of plots. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, I mean, if you considered from the definition on dictionary, yes. But in creative writing, when you talk about story and plot, the biggest difference is that in story, things could be separate from each other, but for plots, I mean, the events need to have a logic, a connection. I'll give you an example. The great English author Forster defines the differences like this. Okay, so the king died and the queen died. This is a story. While the king died and the queen died of grief is a plot. Okay, so this implies a casual relationship between those two events. In the first description, A happened and then B happened, right? So the king died and then the queen died. There's no relationship between these two actions or these two events. It's like an itinerary of events that happened according to a timeline but are not related to each other. I'll give you another example about the departure board in an airport or train station. Okay, so you're there and you see one plane leaves at 5 p.m. and then the next plane leaves at 6 p.m. and to a different city. So these two flights occur one after the other, but they are not related to each other in any way. Okay, so in that case, it's story or it's events happens, but it's not plot. In a second description, as the king and queen example, A happened and then B happened because of A. Okay, so the queen died because he was sad about the first thing that happened. So those things are connected to each other. And let's go back to the airport example. So you want to take the 5 p.m. flight to, let's say, Beijing, okay, to meet a friend, but then discover that they reroute through another place, for example, like Shanghai. Okay, and you were stuck there. So therefore, you took the 6 p.m. flight instead. So in this case, these two flights are some kind of related because of your meeting with your friends and your thoughts and your plan. So that is a plot. You take the first one and you drop it and then you decide to take the second one. In this case, when you write your story, when you write these main events, you don't use then or you don't need then. What you need is therefore or so or as a result. Did I make this clear? Can someone summarize the main difference between a plot and story for all of us? Who would like to try? No? Jia Qi, okay.
So I think...
Alright, Jia Qi, can you summarize that? Yes.
Yeah, so lots of plots add together as a story, and the story, everything relates to each other, but the plot can be just like by themselves.
Can you...
Wait, my mom is talking to me.
Okay. All right. I'll put you off mic so that you can talk to her. So when you write something, okay, because in case you want to write a good novel, the events that appears in your novel or in your writing should be connected to each other in a logical way, rather than, they just happen one after the other. All right. But this is more for your creative writing than for analyzing piece of reading. So when you read the story, you know that main event 1, main event 2, event 3, and that's fine, because the things you read are a good story. So they're good plots. They are related to each other. But when you write, usually you will find that the main events you write do not really connect to each other. Okay. And I'd like to show you this pyramid. Is that familiar to you? This is the Freytag's pyramid, okay? Gustav Freytag was 19th century German novelist and playwright who analyzed ancient Greek and Shakespeare drama and then devised this pyramid to describe how a story works. So at the base of one side of the pyramid is exposition. Okay, and then inciting incident. And then you have rising action to the climax, falling action, resolution, and denouement. Can someone try to explain the pyramid? Well, you don't have to get it 100% correct. Just to share your opinion on the pyramid, probably trying to explain it. Let's ask Pen. Hi, Pen. Okay, tell us something about the pyramid.
Exposition is the beginning of the story, and there's no excitement yet. And the inciting incident is the beginning of the story, and because of someone who died or some exciting things. The rising action is from the inciting incident, the more improvement of the complication, and then to the climax where the complication reaches the highest point. And then some of the mysteries are solved, and then comes to falling action. After the falling action, the problem is solved, and then the ending of the story and a big ending.
Okay, Pen, do you like mystery novels or detective novels?
Personally, I don't like it, but
you don't like them because when you say inciting incident, you said like someone died or something. So I thought that would be a typical inciting incident of a detective story or a mystery story. Right. We don't always have someone died, as the incident, inciting incident. But yes, I think you're right on the general idea of the pyramid. Yes, that's almost the idea. Thank you, Pen. So what is, sorry, I still want to ask him, what is his favorite type of novel? Okay, yeah. So for exposition, and so Pen said that exposition is before anything happens, right? So if it's before anything happens, so what should we put in exposition, or what's usually there for exposition? Any ideas? So this is where you give your initial important background information about the story. For example, your setting. Okay, you tell your reader information about setting and other kinds of backgrounds that have occurred before the main plot of your story. For example, past events, a childhood time of somebody. Okay, so that kind of thing. So your backstory information about character, information that might provide context for what your plot is about. For example, if it's a horror novel, horror story, you're going to say, okay, so this is a world which zombie takes over. So that could be your exposition. Okay, exposition come from the word expose. So you're trying to expose everything to your reader. So inciting incident. Okay, inciting incident is the actual event that kicks off the action in your story. As many of you have mentioned, this is the start of your main story. So the event also informs the reader that the main conflict in your plot will be about. And this is also where you're going to introduce your protagonist, which is your main character. Okay? So, for example, like in this story, what would be the inciting incident? Have we reached there yet? Any ideas? For the first two paragraphs, you have read. Have we reached the inciting incident yet? Let's ask someone. Vivian?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think the inciting incident in this story is that the man volunteered to be part of a scientific experiment, and it's going into the rising action, like right now. Okay,
so there are two main events that somebody mentioned before, right? The first thing is that the man took part in an experiment. The second is he is now kept in a cell. Do you think that both of these two events are inciting incident, or one of these two is inciting incident? The other goes into exposition.
I think maybe he volunteered to be part of the scientific experiment is the exposition, and he's locked in a cell is the inciting incident.
Yes, correct. That is correct. Thank you, Vivian. That is excellent. Yes. So the incident is usually the beginning of the main part of the story. He is locked there. He need to find a way out, right? He got a problem. So in the previous picture, you see problem, right? So the problem means inciting incident. It's just a simpler way of saying inciting incident. Could be a problem, but also could be a conflict. Okay. And this is usually you introduce your protagonist. This is an event or series of exciting events that start right. This is the beginning of series of exciting events. Okay, and after the pyramid goes up, that is your rising action. So not only one event, but several events. Some people say 3 is the magic number, so you always got 3 big events. Or, I mean, there can be 4, 5, or as more as you want. So that builds up to your climax. We haven't read the rest parts of this story, so we have no idea about that. So your plot is dependent upon these exciting events to set up the climax of your story. So rising action is really important. Okay, so you need events after events connected to each other. This is your plots, your main plots. Alright, so after that, so during this rising action, you will meet your antagonist. Does anyone know what is antagonist? Can someone give me another word in the comments, in the chat box? Antagonist and protagonist. These are also the words that you probably need to use when you are asked to write a literature review, or you're asked to write a report on a literature. No idea? Antagonist. Oh, someone raise her hand. So, Amelia. Hi, Amelia. Yes, go.
I think that the antagonist is someone who tries to harm the protagonist. He or she is the bad person in a story or something, and the protagonist is the main character of one story. Yeah,
you're right. Thank you, Amelia. So antagonist is usually the bad guys. Okay. And protagonist is your main character. So antagonist is the opposite side from that. Just a term that you can use when you discuss literature and stories. Okay, so then you reach your climax, right? So that's the most exciting event in your plot, the biggest tension in your story. So that's everything that your rising action has built up to, and this is the most important thing you want to write about, and is also where your protagonist, which is your main character, pushed up against the wall and finally reveals what they are made of. Is the revealing true part. Okay, and after that you started to going down in falling action. This is also you learned the conflict between your protagonist and the obstacles have been put in their way. So then you come to resolution. This is where the protagonist or main character solves the main problem or conflict. But we have the last part. So after the resolution, actually, we have a denouement. This is the ending part of the story. Any remaining secrets, questions, mysteries, which remain after the revolution is solved by the characters or explained by somebody else. Okay, does that make sense to you? Alright, so please type 2 if you have read the Harry Potter series. If you have read Harry Potter series, please type 2, and especially the first book. Okay, that's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Please type 2 if you have watched. No one? Really? No? Nobody? That's really sad. That's one of my favorite books. Okay, cause I can't see any of you. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So now I see. I think it's because of the internet, so I didn't see anyone post anything. Right. So a lot of you have read that. Excellent. Because I'm about to use that as an example. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. I want you to think about the first book in Harry Potter series, The Sorcerer's Stone. I want you to write down all these elements, okay, all these steps in a novel. Try to put them into this framework, this pyramid, and then probably share with us. It doesn't matter that if you can't remember, the details in the story, as long as you could still, recall the general events in the story. Okay, you don't have to go into details, but the general idea would be fine. Okay, so 2 to 3 minutes. If you have finished, please say finished in the chat box. For someone who haven't read it, think of another story. Think of another novel that you have read and do the same thing. Well, for example, you could use, like Shakespeare's stories, Romeo and Juliet. You can use some of the popular traditional Chinese story as well. 梁山伯与祝英台. I don't know, 花木兰. What else? Basically, most of the most well-known stories follows this framework. So, yeah, Wizard of Oz. Anything. But if you have read about Harry Potter, and please try to think about Harry Potter, because that's which one we're gonna talk about later. Okay? Got 2 minutes. Or, sorry to interrupt, but also you can think about films. The Lord of the Ring, such things. Okay. Okay, you got 1 minute left, and if you have finished, please type finished, and if you haven't, just take your time. Okay, alright. It doesn't matter if you haven't finished, but I mean the purpose of this activity is just to get you to think about it. I'm not expecting you to give me the perfect answer, but as long as you think about it, and that's good. Alright? So there's a reason that we talk about Harry Potter series here. The series have action, dynamic characters, and great writing. But where it really stands out is in plot. That explains why it's one of the best-selling novels all over the world. Okay? So, I'm going to try to explain that the plot setting in a book, and you can check with what you have worked out. So I think as a reader, probably you haven't thought from that angle before. I mean, what's the rising action and something? And you won't notice that, this is part of the rising action. When you read the story, right, you just want to see what happens next. But I think as a reader, you always can tell, like, where is the climax? And probably the resolution. I think these two should be the starting point. But as someone who trying to get the overall idea of plots, we're going to explain from the exposition. Okay, so in the exposition, we're introduced to Harry and his horrible relatives, the Dursleys, right? We found out he's an orphan, and it's clear he's been mistreated by the Dursleys concerning the odd incidents that seem to keep happening around him. But he doesn't know anything about that. So, it also includes, before Harry's 11th birthday, letters are delivered to the house, which his uncle intercepts with their increasing mania. And finally, the family moved to a cabin on a remote island just to want to get rid of the males, right? And that's all exposition. So, the inciting incident is that on that midnight, okay, at the midnight, on Harry's birthday, so Hagrid shows up to hand deliver a letter to informs Harry that he is actually a wizard, and he need to go to the wizard school, and everything about his parents and what kind of people he is. So that is the inciting incident. Alright? And then you got raising action, which is where the majority of the book take place. So he learns what it means to be a wizard and start discovering the wizard world. He meets his best friends, right? Hagrid, Ron, Hermione, and also his antagonist, Snape and Draco Malfoy. So we follow Harry through his first year in the school and all the problems, the classes, the Quidditch team, and then the mysterious happening going around the school. Okay, so that's all rising incidents. And ultimately, Harry, Ron, and Hermione reach an conclusion that Snape is trying to steal the Sorcerer's Stone and they attempt to stop him. And this all goes into the rising action. Okay? So the climax. So Harry reaches the end of the teacher's set traps. Do you still remember that the puzzles, there are different, level of puzzles, and sees not Snape, but Professor Quirrell, right, attempting to steal the stone. And he is actually Voldemort in another in another form, right? So they're kind of connected and they are one and they're trying to kill Harry and blah, blah, blah. And then Voldemort reveals himself and trying to kill Harry and blah, blah, blah. And then Harry passed out. That is the climax. The most exciting part of the book. Falling action would be Harry wakes up later, okay, and to figure out he's still alive and he's been protected by his mother's love and so on. Dumbledore came to him, telling him that Voldemort and left Quirrell to die and the stone has been destroyed. So that's the falling action. And resolution would be the ending of the school year. Okay, so they win back on the house points. And Gryffindor wins the house cup. And denouement. So Harry returns home to the Dursleys for the summer, and without letting them know that he can't use magic outside school. And plus, in this part, if you have a series of stories, for example, like the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter series, and as long as you have a series, denouement would be the part that you give your reader hook for the next book. Can you see that? This is a time that they would give a hook for next book or next story, so that you want to read the next story. Right? It's usually the same for movie series as well. You think that finally they win and they kill a bad guy, but at the very last second or at the very last few minutes of the film, well, you see that they came back to life, or you suddenly found out there's another hidden boss there. So that would be the hook for next film or something. All right. So this is just an example of how you could use the pyramid to analyze one novel, story, or a series piece of work for literature. If you're interested in this, you can trying to use the pyramid to analyze any of the good stories, novels, and you will find that they all fit into this pyramid. You can also do that with films as well, or play. The most famous plays. Okay, but in this book, we're going to use the simpler version. So don't worry if you can't understand the previous one. It's my additional theory for you, my additional knowledge for some of you who might be interested in writing a story. Okay, so in this book, I think this one is okay. So problem, event. So this is the setting. Okay, this is the setting and background, and then plot, problem, and then event, climax, solution. That is all for this story. Okay, so this reading, if you turn to the next page, and you will see this part. This is a very short journal written by someone about the day he saw Harry Houdini escape. I want you to read the journal in a few minutes and trying to tell me, what does the writer find out? Okay, or what kind of beliefs of him has been changed. Okay, so I'll give you 3 minutes to read. Okay, have you finished? How many minutes do you need? 1 minute? 2 minutes? Okay, I think you have finished. Right. So I have a question, right? So what effect did the magician have on the writer? What kind of beliefs of him has been changed because of this magician? You can raise up your hands now. All right, let's hear from. Hi,
Hello.
how should I call you?
Call me Eva. I will change my name after class.
Okay. Hi, Eva. What effect?
At first, the writer think that Hodney's kind of magic is fake. It's all fake. But after he saw Hodney escape, he believed that it's not fake. It is real. So I think this is
do you think that the magician has a huge impact on the writer, and how do you know that?
Sorry?
Do you think that the magician has a huge impact on the writer?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
Because at the end of second paragraph, it said it is a great fake. It is before he saw Harry escaped. But after, at the last paragraph, he said that I know that I have changed. I have become one of Hodney's biggest fans. So
Yes.
Had a very great impact on him because it changed his opinion on the magician.
And what do you think that, like, how the writer sees the magician? Like, he thinks the magician is...
I think he thinks the magician is amazing and incredible because he can escape from a very tight rope, and so I think
right.
I think
yes. So thank you. Yes, I mean, after he sees that with his own eyes, he completely changed his idea about the magician. But I think is even more than amazed, because he said, does the man possess amazing cleverness or some superhuman force? Right? So the second one was even, more unbelievable than the first. So the writer starts to think that, is it because of his cleverness, because of the whole show, or is it because he, really have some super power? Okay, so that is this sentence really tells you that how big impact the magician has leave on the writer. Okay, so have you seen anything like this? These escape shows, and how do you feel about it? Any ideas? Well, some of you might see it on TV, other people may see it with their own eyes, right? How do you feel about it? Let's ask Emily.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, when I see magician performing on stage or things like. I thought it was amazing, but I know what's true is they just played a trick on your eyes.
So you don't really believe in their tricks?
Yeah, because they're just normal people, as you and me, just being a little bit practiced, sort of magic thing like that.
So no one have convinced you that they have some sort of superpower?
Of course not.
Of course not. Okay, maybe you haven't.
But not at all.
Not at all. Okay, maybe you need to see some better magicians, right? Better shows or something. Yes, perhaps. Okay, thank you, Emily, and that is correct. Yes, I mean, this kind of show, these magic tricks have different impact on everyone. But the main topic of this journal is escape. And stories of escapes have long fascinated readers and writers. Okay? Think about detective stories. In some of the detective stories, we always want to know, like, how the criminal, how they did this impossible crime. Have you heard of the name of impossible crime? Or how they escaped from the crime scene, right? Without leaving any trace there. So this is the also the topic of this story, the experiment. I think you have all read that story, right? Because that's your pre-task. But let's start from this painting. Okay, so George A. paints pictures that send powerful messages. So this that is the painter. So what is the message from this specific piece of work? Do you think the message is positive or negative? What does he want to tell you by this painting? Any ideas? When?
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah? Yeah.
I think through this picture, I think this story is negative because the color the painter uses black and some dark colors. And when you first look at the pictures, you can see a man is locked in a cage, something, and you can imagine that he is locked in somewhere and he need to get out of there.
Yeah, probably. Yes, thank you. That is excellent. Yes. So what you can see in a picture is a door with steel bars, right? And a lock, very obvious. So this is definitely not the place where you want to be. And this could be a place where you want to escape from. So very negative message, strong negative message, like I want to escape from this. I'm like stuck in some place. Okay, and so when you describe or when you reflect on a piece of art, you always talk about what you see in that piece of art and what mood or feeling does this image create. And you talk about your feelings and also the evidence. Where did you get that feeling from? Okay? All right. Yes, so we're going to so the picture is closely linked to the story. Okay. So you're going to start from part 1. So there was no way out. The walls of cell were built of thick cement blocks. The huge door was made of steel. The floor and ceiling were made of concrete, and there were no windows. The only light came from a light bulb that was covered by a metal shield. Okay, so I'm going to underline some words, and you're going to tell me what kind of effects those words have on the whole paragraph. Okay? So thick cement blocks, huge door, steel, concrete, no window, only light, metal shield. Okay, think about these words, these details. What kind of effects they have on the whole paragraph? Let's hear from someone who I don't know their name.
Yeah, hello.
Hi. What's your name?
Wait, I'm Bora. Yeah, I only use another, I'm Bora.
Okay, Bora. Okay, so what do you think about this?
Yeah, so anyway, I think all these words give us a feeling of stillness and a feeling that we're trapped inside. So all these words make me feel that I'm trapped, especially this is a cell. So it illustrates how hard or how there's no way to escape. Yeah.
If you close your eyes, can you see this cell in your brain?
Yeah. I think it's sort of really hard and place I don't want to go. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Bora. Yes, so you add a lot of these details, okay? You basically, a lot of these words are telling you the material of something. So you see, so the material of the walls, of the door, of the floor and ceiling, and also the shields of the light bulb, right? So when you trying to set a scene, this is part of the setting, right? Because you're describing the place of your story. So you don't directly tell your readers the feeling of this place. So you don't use adjectives. You see, there's rarely adjectives using. There's no cold, scary, uncomfortable. There's no such word. Everything you see is in noun. So it's a fact somebody tells you. So this is a very important principle of show, don't tell. Okay? Is very important in writing something. You always show, don't tell. Your readers will get you if you show them the right thing. Right? So the writer show us what's in the cell and the material of the elements in the cell, and then we close our eyes, we can see the cell, and we can feel, the air in the cell. This is how you create feelings. Excellent. Okay. So, next. There was no way out. So it seemed to him. Or so it seemed to him. What does that mean by or so it seemed to him? Could someone reorder the words in this part so that this part would make sense? Ethan, can you try?
Teacher, can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
So it said or so it seemed to him because it's like a personal point of view. So it says that or so it seemed to him because it shows that what he looks about this place is that there is no way out.
So you think also is like a one phrase used together here, or do you think that's
I think it should be separated because
separate. Explain this part in your own words.
Well, I can say that I don't know.
Okay, so there was no way out, or you try to paraphrase the second part of the sentence, or at least this is, or at least this is what he thinks. Right? So the so actually should be at the end of the sentence. Or, it seems to him so. Or, it seemed so to him. Okay, does that make sense to you? Or at least he thinks so. Yes? So the so actually goes together with seemed or him. Right. So he had volunteered. And please remember, this is an important sentence, and we're going to come back to see why this is an important sentence. Okay. So he had volunteered, blah, blah, blah. This is the background. Okay. And he need to find a one way to escape from the cell, and he had 3 hours to find it. Question. Why did the writer tell us he had 3 hours to find it? This 3 hour time period, how does it affect the plot? Pen?
I think that if the time is so short, then he may have seen nothing and be open and chased away and announced fail. If the hour is too long, maybe he will find multiple ways escaping from the cell. So he has 3 hours, not too long, not too short. So this affects the plot as to make a step to the latter plots.
Yes, I think what you're trying to say is that the 3 hours make this task quite reasonable and logical. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay. So Pen, and think about this. If I ask you to finish this test paper, okay, this is my first way of telling you to do so. And then I would also say, finish this test paper in 30 minutes. What are the difference?
Oh, it has a time limit. Finish this test paper, there's no time limit. And it don't give you any information. Maybe it's a quite challenging task to finish it in 10 minutes, but kid in kindergarten can do it in 2 hours.
So if I tell you there's a time limit of this task, what that makes you feel? Do you feel you become more nervous about it, or you think that yeah. You started to be, alert, and you're nervous, saying, okay, I must start now, otherwise I may run out of time or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pen. Yes, that is the reason why the writer tell us he got 3 hours. Well, the writer is not telling him, okay, he had 3 hours, but the writer is telling us he only got 3 hours. To create this kind of intention, to intensify the whole thing, makes you want to, makes you more, exciting about the story. So you want to see how he escaped from the cell. Alright, so he opens the door and stood in front of him, huge and great. Again, think about how these details of the door make you feel. Okay, the 3 large hinges on the door. Hinge, what is hinge? 那个插销啊 on the door were riveted into the wall. Riveted means it was together with the wall. So they are built together. So you can't take that off. It's not a separate part on the door. So riveted into the wall. These are 2 new words. If you don't know, you can note that down. And could not be removed. Yes. The door itself seemed too big for the small cell, and for a minute he wondered if he had been put up first and the rest of the cell built around it. So just to show you that the doll is really huge, right? I think you all have finished reading the story. Why do you think the writer has this part? He wondered if it has been put up first and then the rest of the cell built around it. Any ideas? Let's ask somebody who haven't been asked before. Hi, can't really see the full of your name. Is it Jingyao? Thomas. Okay. What do you think?
So, I think this sentence was put here also to make it seem impossible to break out. Yeah, so he wrote the door like it was a small door and it seemed really crisp, and as if one slight gust of wind would blow it away. That man, it probably would give us a intention that the door was small and weak, and probably the man would have no problem breaking out in 3 hours. So I think all these setting writing, it was put here to make the cell seem impossible to. And 3 hour time limit, it seemed to have more tension. And
Yes, I agree with you. Yes, I think you mentioned very important points about to intensify it, to make you feel more pressure about the place. If you're in a small cell with a really big door, that makes you feel the cell is even smaller, right? So that you feel more pressure. But let's put a star here, okay? And we'll come back to this sentence later. Okay, so this is another painting here. What is the setting of this work of art? It's not only stories and novel will have setting, artwork will have setting as well. So what is the setting of the artwork and how does it relate to the story? So do you know what is the setting of the artwork? It's the same thing basically. Tell you when and where. Okay, everything happened. So for this one, you can say it's also in a contained area, contained space, probably in a cell, right? Also in a cell. And how does it relate to the story? Well, they are of the same topic. They're all about in a cell or something. And you see the blocks, right? Because in the passage, the writer mentions about thick cement blocks and concrete something. So you use an organizer like this. Okay, this is a graphic organizer. So you could compare the artwork and the story so that you understand the connection between them. So the art might be about cell, and you see cement blocks, gray and dark. It also gives you the feeling of cold and, dangerous, probably a little bit scared, not very positive. So the same thing in a cell, cement blocks, huge door. Okay. And also this is the flow chart. The flow chart to help you to sort out all the main events in the story. So when you read a story, you draw these circles and then you put the main event into them so that you have a very clear sequence of events happens. Okay, next. Finally, he turned away from the door and looked around. He tried pushing against the cement blocks to see if any of them were loose. He searched, and then he glanced up at the ceiling. the shield around the light bulb, his mind raised. Okay, so the shield is a very short sentence, and previous sentence were longer sentence. So you kind of switch between long sentences and short sentences to change the pace of the story. If it's all very long sentences and your reader get tired, right? They couldn't find a place to take a rest, to take the breath. So this is where you can take a breath here. So the shield. So the metal shield could be used as a tool, the tool he needed. He had found the way to escape. Okay. What do you think will happen next, guys? I know you probably have read the story, but predicting is a strategy rather than imagination. So you can still try to predict what is going to happen next. But when you predict, you need to base on some facts. So this is how you could predict, preview and predict. Okay. So when you predict, you always have these three things to think about. First, events in a plot. So you always start from events in the plot. And then you're going to have your prediction. And then you ask yourself, was my prediction logical? Does my prediction base on something in the plot? Or is just completely my imagination? Normally, when you take an exam or when you're trying to answer a question in an English test, it doesn't matter which kind of test is that. Whether it's in IB literature, A-level English and literature, or SAT, all kinds of those literature tests. When they ask you to make predictions, they're not asking you to think of something from nowhere. You need to base on something in the reading, in the literature, and then you have a logical inference based on that. Okay, here is the example, you see. So events in the plot said the man volunteers for an experiment and he has to get out from a cell. So prediction would be he will